Welcome to Black Women Leading the podcast. I'm Laura Knight, your host and the founder of blackwomenleading.com. Today, we're talking about defining your executive presence with Shaquanna Chappelle. If you've ever wanted to learn more about executive presence and how you can boost yours, if you want to understand the connection between your self-confidence, your self-trust, and how that shows up when you're interacting with other people, and if you want to get some tips on how to create your unique executive presence that doesn't make you an imitation of anyone else, then you need to keep listening. Let's get into it.
Black woman leading. Black woman leading.
This podcast amplifies the needs and experiences of Black women leaders in the workplace with a holistic focus on 3 core areas: leadership development, mental wellness, and relationship management. Our ultimate aim is to help Black women learn, heal, and grow in their leadership capacity.
Black woman leading.
Get ready, sis. The Black Women Leading Live Conference and Retreat is back for our 4th annual event. And this year, we're leveling up. In 2026, we're developing future-ready leaders. Leaders prepared to rise, adapt, and thrive in a world that's changing every single day. Designed by Black women for Black women, this is a one-of-a-kind professional development experience. You go deep into the heart work and the head work, the alignment, strategy, clarity, and confidence you need to boldly walk into your next level. This year, we're spotlighting the skills and mindsets that define future-ready leadership, navigating disruption, leading through change, anticipating opportunity, and adapting with resilience and vision. Whether you're an emerging, mid-career, or senior leader, this space was created with you in mind. True to our cultural roots, we learn in community, across generations, across experiences, and across our shared brilliance. You'll be surrounded by Black women leaders, coaches, and experts, including direct learning from yours truly as the creator of the Black Women Leading programs and podcasts. If you are ready for transformation, if you are ready to expand your leadership and your wellness, if you're ready to prepare not only for what's now, but what's next, then you belong here. Join us at Black Women Leading Live, May 11th through the 14th in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Save your seat at www.bwlretreat.com. Your future-ready leadership journey starts today.
Black woman leading.
Hey everybody, today we are talking about defining your executive presence with Shaquanna Chappelle. Welcome, Shaquanna. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you, Laura. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So I'm excited to get into this topic. We know executive presence is a buzzword in the leadership professional development space, but we're going to get into it and get some expertise from Shaquanna on this. But before we get started, I want to give you all the official about Shaquanna. So Shaquanna is a sought-after speaker and executive presence consultant trusted by Forbes School of Business and Technology, Georgia Association of Women Lawyers, Centera Health, and many more. Known for her high-energy keynotes on fear, insecurity, and self-imposed limits, she empowers professionals to tap into their confidence and show up in their full power. As an in-demand image and style expert, she believes confidence starts within. Her book, Get Up and Get Dressed, guides women to eliminate self-doubt and embrace their full potential. Through her Pursuing a Powerful Presence method, Shaquanna creates safe, engaging spaces that help leaders build self-trust and accelerate career success. After hearing Shaquanna speak, professionals are able to combat insecurities and reach a new level of confidence that commands the room. And we're all about new levels. So I as you can see just from Shaquanna's bio, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring her to the podcast and talk about, this buzzword of executive presence is because, here at Black Women Leading, we talk about heart work and head work. And what I really liked about Shaquanna's approach to not only executive presence, but confidence was this inside out piece, right? Self-trust. You often don't hear self-trust linked with executive presence. So I figured this sister got something to say to us, and wanted to get her insights on this. So super excited to dive into this. But before we start talking about executive presence and all of that, I want to start with this question, Shaquanna, that I ask all of our guests. What does the phrase Black woman leading mean to you? And can you share just a little bit about your journey as a Black woman leading and how you've come to do this current work?
Yeah, so Black women leading to me, and this is just what attracts me to your platform in general. You know, leadership, when you think of leadership, you're thinking about the skills, their competence, and how smart they are, and they can do the job, and that's great. As Black women, we already got that in our DNA. We can do that,
Yeah.
right? But for Black women leading, I feel like, and I truly believe that Black women were specifically conditioned to be silent. We were
Mm,
conditioned to be humble. We were conditioned to not show up in our full selves and our full power. So for me, Black women leading means owning your voice. It means projecting that confidence and owning your authority. It means using your voice. It means showing up in the power that you were created with, right? So that's what Black women leading means to me. It's that inner work and unlearning what we were taught through society or whatever.
yeah.
But as far as my journey, I have, of course, my own journey of just riding the waves and trying to eliminate the self doubt, the insecurities that I have. And I know that once I did that, that's when I began to see myself in the way that God created me to be. And that's why I love helping women do the same thing. So I have my journey of being a leader in corporate America. My background is in IT. That's what I went to school for.
Okay.
And I have my experiences in corporate America, but I specifically remember starting my big girl job as a young Black professional woman, just out of college, and trying to navigate what that was like, trying to navigate where I fit in.
Mm,
And I, moved around, climbed the ladder a bit, and I realized, you know what, I want more. I want something deeper. I was working my business as a wardrobe stylist at the same
okay.
time. And I was just like, you know what, I am just so passionate about professional women being confident just because of some experiences I felt. I've dealt with layoffs and just being the only one in the room, and all the
Yeah.
things that Black
All
women
the things.
encounter. And yeah, I was just like, I have to do my life's work, my purposeful work. And that's when I transitioned from corporate America to entrepreneurship, helping professional women do the same through my experiences and wisdom and guidance and all the things. So that's a very high level, of course,
Yeah.
of my story, but I definitely have that corporate experience. I understand the ups and the downs, and I've used that for my own advantage. And now I help women do the same.
Ah, I love it. I love it. So you talked a little bit about this kind of pivot that you made, and it's not a full pivot because the image and the wardrobe styling is a piece of
Yeah.
executive presence. But what was that moment when you realized that the work needed to go a little bit deeper than just the external image? What was that
Yeah.
moment or collection of moments?
Yeah, because I don't think it was one specific defining moment,
Yeah.
other than I felt it in my heart. I felt that nudge because I love wardrobe styling. It's work I still do today. I love putting together a cute outfit. I love shopping. Like, I'm your girl. I will do that for you. However, I started to feel like I was being known only as, oh, the woman who puts together cute outfits. And
I
I knew
see.
that there was so much more in my heart to give, and within my purpose as well. So that was kind of like the real defining moment. But then I would notice patterns with my clients. I would get a
Mm,
lot of professional women coming to me and like, I want to look cute. I gotta look good for this conference. I gotta look good for this photo shoot. I gotta do this. And I'm like, okay, cool, we got it. But then when I see them enter these spaces dressed to the nines, but enter these spaces, I noticed that they would shrink. I noticed that they still wouldn't
mm,
speak up. I noticed that the confidence wasn't fully there. And I said,
yeah.
oh no, I'm not putting my name on your cute
Hello.
outfit, and you're not acting the way that you look, right? And so that's when I knew I wanted to do deeper work within the confidence space. And it just so happened, one of my clients, she was like, hey, can you style me? But also, I want you to coach me on my executive presence. I was like,
Uh-huh.
okay. So it kind of just all happened. And in
I
a
see.
sense kind of fell in my lap, but it really didn't because things were working within my spirit anyway to go in that direction. But once she did that, I was like, all right, this is it. Like we're gonna go full at it with it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And in our Black Woman Leading programs, we call that concept that you're talking about where like the package, how they're showing up doesn't match the package. We call it a misaligned come from. And your come from is that
Mm,
internal space, your, emotional, mental, psychological, that internal space that comes out, whether you know it or not,
right.
when you are interacting with others. And so a lot of our work inside of the Black Woman Leading programs is aligning that polished presence that you're talking about, that polished external presence
Yeah.
with people feeling that same way inside and how much more powerfully they show up as leaders, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I
People can
love it.
tell. People can tell.
I Yeah, they could tell, and it comes out. And I think too, what I've realized as people grow in their self awareness, there becomes this piece where you know that you're not
Mm,
maybe showing up in the world in the way that you want to, maybe saying the things or addressing things in a certain way, and so it becomes like this vicious cycle if people don't have tools or support to be able to break out of that internal stuff. And you know this because you do this. So let's talk about this executive presence. It's a phrase we hear a lot, of course, in the leadership lexicon and leadership learning, but it often feels vague. So from this work that you do, how do you define executive presence, and what are some of the biggest misconceptions you feel like people have about it?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that it is this buzzword, but like no one's
Yeah.
really defining it. And that was my issue when I was in my corporate experience. People say, "Oh, Shaquanna, you didn't get that opportunity because you don't have executive presence." I'm like, "Well, what is it?" And they'll
Yeah.
tell me some like blanket definition, but I'm like, "All right, so how does that relate to me as a black woman?
Yeah.
Like, what does
Yeah.
that mean to me?" So yeah, I have my own definition of executive presence, and what I tend to tell people is it's your ability to authentically, and that's the key word, authentically show up in your own personal power so you can demonstrate that confidence and build trust, build that self trust, but trust from others, and also
Hmm.
engage with others, right? So that's my definition of executive presence. I want to make sure that the authentic piece is in there and the power piece is in there, right? Of course, we can
Okay.
talk about confidence because confidence is the foundation or the core of executive presence, but it's just really owning who you really are and not putting on a mask and not trying to be someone else. So that's one of the misconceptions of executive presence. People think, oh, I need to be like this top exec that I see all the time in meetings, or I need to be like her. She's my boss and she does this and that, and I need to be that. But if that's not naturally you, then that's not going to work. Because again, that
Yeah.
authentic, and there's a lot of misconceptions, but a lot of people think it's something that you're born with and you just naturally have. No, it's a
Yeah.
skill that you learn. That's why I'm here. Let's bring that skill out. And other things too, like you have to have a certain personality trait, or you have to be an extrovert to have executive presence.
Exactly.
And I am queen of all the introverts in the world. I would let you know I'm introverted for
Not
sure.
the queen.
I love being an introvert. But no, but it's one of those things where it's not a one size fits all type of thing. Like executive presence isn't something that's just standard for everyone. It's what works for you, what works for who you are, your core beliefs, your core personality, and just framing it in a way where it aligns with how you want to be perceived. So those are a
Okay.
few of the misconceptions. There is a lot more that I usually go through, but at the end of the day, I just don't want people to think that they have to be someone else in order to have that presence that people like to throw around.
Okay, I love it. And just in case this is a newer concept for someone listening, can you give, and I'm a visual learner too, so this might be help for some of our visual learners. What are some examples? Like, how would I show up? Let's say I'm entering a meeting. If I had a high level of executive presence, what are some indicators that would show of that when I'm engaging in, my workplace engagements or different interactions? What are like indicators of that you've seen or that you coach people through?
Yeah, that they have a strong executive presence, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, for example, using your example of a meeting, of course, you can walk in with that nice outfit, nice head held high, that whole
Mhm.
external piece of it. But in meetings, speaking up, but speaking up early, speaking up in the way that you're a part of the person who's setting the tone for the meeting, not being
Okay.
afraid to communicate your ideas, not be afraid to share your insights. We have a lot of knowledge, but again, we tend to shrink it by not speaking up and not sharing. So being that person that shares their thoughtful ideas, who can communicate clearly, slowing down their pace, making sure they're
Mhm.
articulating exactly their thought or their idea. Body language is a big one. We tend to not understand how sometimes our body communicates a different message than what we are thinking, right?
Yes.
So understanding that for yourself and what that means. And then also to even just in your natural conversations with leadership or someone in the workplace, again, just sharing thoughtful ideas, but sharing strategic things, not just focus on tasks and assignments, but saying, okay, I think this is great, but let's move the needle this way, or let's do this. And then also watching your language and the words that you say. I know a lot of times, and I used to do this, and I've been in meetings where people do this, they'll be like, oh, this may be a dumb question, but, or
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I just have one little question that, like, when those things, as subtle as it is, and it may not seem like it's a big deal, you have no idea how that's communicating to someone else of, oh, she's not confident in what she's about to say.
Yeah.
And when you constantly do that over and over again, that kind of takes away from your presence. So doing the opposite of that will definitely heighten your level of executive presence, and not using that language of, oh, I'm sorry, or whatever. Just say, well, my recommendation is, or I think we should move the needle this way, those type of things. Just being very
Okay.
direct and assertive is definitely an indicator like, okay, she has that presence.
Okay, so going right after it, I call that limiting language, right? So avoiding the
Hmm.
limiting language. I heard body language, I heard the specific verbal language you use, and the kind of presence you bring that forth with. Of course, your taking initiative and kind of helping to guide the narrative, these kind of things. Okay,
Yeah.
this is good. Now, you mentioned earlier confidence is one of the biggest pieces of this. I want to come back to the confidence piece because I know you do a lot of work with people on that. But I do want to circle back to self trust. And you referenced that when you were talking about executive presence. What role does self trust play in executive presence? Like, what is the function of that in executive presence? And then the second part I'll ask is, well, let me hear from that first. Let me hear about that first because it might change my second question.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, that's self trust, which I correlate with self confidence, because confidence is trusting yourself, right? So that
Okay.
self trust, it is the core, it's the foundation of your executive presence, it's what it's centered around. And
Okay.
as far as what that looks like, trusting your values, trusting your beliefs, trusting your capabilities, trusting
Mm,
what you think or say. All of that plays a major role in how you show up externally with your executive presence. Because when you trust your values, when you trust your core beliefs, when you trust who you really are and not this mask
yeah.
that you put on, you're going to show up differently.
Yeah.
You're going to speak clearly in meetings. You're going to show up differently when you have to do presentations, because you know how we all are. When we know that we are, we used to say back in the day, a bag of chips. Is that what we say? We say
All that and a
all
bag of
that
chips.
bag of chips.
Okay.
When we know that, we show up differently. But when we
Yeah.
lack that self trust, that's when we second guess ourselves. We
Mm,
overthink. We replay situations in our head like, oh, should I have said this? Should I have done that? All of that is you not trusting yourself. So
yeah.
self trust plays a huge role in executive presence in general, because it's the starting point and it trickles down with everything else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, I'm thinking about that. Lots of different reasons, right? Why people's self-trust may be a little lower, right? Could have been season of life, things we went through at life, things we went through at work. I mean, all manner of things. Because different seasons, we're not always glowing. Sometimes we forget that we all that in a bag of chips, right?
Right, right.
So do you have any insight or just tips from when you're doing this work with your clients of, let's say someone is listening and they realize, ooh, self-trust, that's the piece that's kind of missing from me, or that was impacted by that maybe last toxic workplace environment or whatever the case. How can someone begin rebuilding that trust in their voice or their perspective or their leadership instincts? What advice do you have if someone is kind of hearing that and recognizing that's an area of growth for them?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. It's going to take practice, right? So let's just
Okay.
say you enter a new relationship with someone or whatever, right?
Okay.
You may not trust them 100% when you first meet them, but what does it
Yeah.
require? You have to have conversations, you have to go on dates, you have to learn more about them, and it
Get to know them. Yeah.
yeah, it takes time and it takes intention. It takes commitment to say, oh, wow, I've been around this person for a while. I got to know them. I think I trust them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's just an analogy. But really, the key point that I want to mention there is practice. Spend time with yourself practicing, being intentional, being aware. Like what you said, someone may be listening and realizing, oh my gosh, I don't have that self trust. Awareness, that's step one. Now that you know,
Yeah.
let's fix it. So, doing those small, repetitive things that help build your confident muscle is what's going to help you trust yourself. So, in the
Mhm.
work environment, what that looks like is, like I mentioned before, practice speaking up in meetings more, speaking up earlier, practice sharing your insights. Practice taking initiative. Let's just say something comes up and your leadership is looking for someone to take ownership of this project. Raise your hand and say, I'll do it. You have to,
Yeah.
it's going to be scary, it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but you have to take that first step, because once you do it and you succeed at it, because we know you can, then you'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I did that, I could trust myself with more. So that's an example of what you want to do, and that's honestly the first main example or main tip I would say to give
Okay.
someone to do that. It's going to take some intention and some time. You're going to have to invest in this if you really truly
Yeah.
want to have that self trust. Another thing that I say, and this may seem silly, but it helps and it works in both your professional life and your personal life. But if you struggle with self trust and lack of confidence, do other little things that kind of help build that confident muscle. So
Mhm.
try a new recipe. If you know you're not a good cook, try a new recipe and see how it turns out. Take a different route home to see if you can find your way home. Like all those
Yeah.
little things, it may seem silly and small, but it helps build in that trust to say, or that self trust, and allows you to say to yourself, you know what? I can do that. I can
Yeah.
cook that chicken. I was afraid to cook it and I can do it. And that just helps build up that trust overall.
Yeah, that's good. And just something I want to point out here, we talk about confidence and some of these topics and things in our Black Women Leading programs, and also want to validate and support people that may be listening, because sometimes we kind of conflate self-esteem, self-trust. I mean, self-esteem and self-confidence, right? And as Shaquanna is pointing out, confidence is really that belief and in the self-efficacy and your skills, right? And your ability to do the things you set out to do. But then sometimes on the other side, people may be dealing with self esteem, which is really about your worthiness as a human being. It's a little bit deeper. And you might need to, work with a therapist or another type of professional to really help you deal with kind of core love for yourself, right, as a human being, which is a little bit deeper than even the confidence stuff that we're talking about, right? So just wanting to affirm you all that, as Shaquana is saying, all of this is a muscle, right? That confidence, that self trust is a muscle. And these things, these examples she's sharing about, just look, it's ability for you to say, okay, I thought this was the thing. I tried this skill and look, it was successful. Or maybe it wasn't, but I didn't die.
Exactly. My world
I'm
didn't
still here.
crumble.
I can try again. My family didn't walk out on me after that recipe, right? That type of thing also builds your confidence. Like, okay, I survived that. I maybe do it again with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But it's the intentionality. And I love that you point out that we got to try, right? We got to
Mhm.
try. we talk about it as like having this vision for how you want to be. Like, so maybe you're realizing the self-trust is something you doubt your words, you use a limited language, and you realize that's something you need to work on. We talk about it in Black Women Leading when like helping people get the courage to take a step is to think about the vision of how you want to be. I want to be that person that guides the narrative of the meeting, or I want to be the person that speaks up without overthinking it. Think about the vision that you want to be presenting, and then do something in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's scary. Like, so I'm usually not the one that speaks up before everybody, but that's the vision of what I have. I gotta do the thing. And so I love that you point out those very practical ways that people can, at a low risk level,
Right.
start
Today.
start to
Yeah.
try to do the thing. Yeah, today. I love it. I love it. So this is getting into a lot of your language around kind of like your philosophy in helping building executive presence is this inside out. Is there anything else that you would add to that? We kind of talked about some of the confidence and the self-trust building, but that you see in your work about this executive presence being an inside out job. Anything else you would add to that piece?
Um, I think I would touch a little, when you say inside out, I'll touch a little bit more on how that impacts the external piece of it,
Okay,
right?
that's
So
good.
focusing, like what I do when I work with my clients, we start with unpacking and peeling back some layers. I'm not a therapist. I'm a huge advocate of therapy. My therapy session is this week. So I love therapy, but therapy has helped me peel some layers back in my own journey,
Yes.
right? And so I like to initiate that process and help my clients peel back some layers. Because, kind of to your point you said earlier, there are reasons why we may feel the way we feel based on other experiences. So, hands down, all my clients, once we unpack, I'm like, oh, that's why you feel like that, or that's
Yeah.
why you're afraid to speak up, or whatever. So, we do that internal work to understand your core values, understanding what makes you feel the most confident, what makes you feel most respected, what makes you feel safe, just kind of
Yeah.
understanding those experiences. And we do that inner work, and then that's when we build back up. And then how that reflects on the outside is, of course, your style, your appearance, but just again, being intentional and putting more effort in that. When you feel good on the inside, you're going to put more effort on the outside because you want it
Yeah.
to reflect that. You want it to represent the woman you are now, right? So understanding that will help. And then knowing or being aware of your body language habits, whether they're good or bad, that definitely helps how you communicate and how you show up as well. So I think that's the
Yeah.
only other piece I would say. I don't want to neglect the out or the external piece of it. I think it's super important, but we're gonna get to the deeper inner stuff first, and then we'll
Yeah.
reflect it on the outside.
Okay, I love it. I love it. You talked about like really helping people identify their unique executive presence positioning. And I want to dive into that because it's, even though we're talking, giving people some examples of what this could look like, this is not a one size fits all kind of setup, right? So can you share a little bit about that? Like what might be some differences in that for people, and how can people begin to discover kind of the executive presence style, right? That's most
Yeah,
authentic to them.
yeah, definitely. One, like you said, it's not a one size fits all. So I want to make sure people
Yeah.
unlearn that and remove that from their mind. Then I want people to think about, I want your audience to think about, okay, well, how am I? What is my present style? It may relate to just who you are internally, your values, your core beliefs. So if you're someone who values work life balance, I guess I'll use it as an
Okay.
example, then, or no, I'll say this. If you're someone who values great communication. You love it when
Okay.
people are responsive to you. You communicate because you got people who will ghost you and stuff like that. Like that's you. You like to communicate. You like to over communicate. Whatever. That's just how you operate. Then the way you show up as your presence, you may be a great communicator. You may be someone who can clearly articulate when you're speaking, but also when you're writing as well. That can play into whatever your presence style is, your executive presence style, your leadership style, etc., etc. So it's understanding what are my core values and how they translate to leadership behavior, how they translate to your presence behavior. It all starts with who am I authentically? And that's different for everyone. Some of us are, we may value being a visionary. We may value,
Yeah.
setting that goal and seeing the vision. So how you show up, that may be how you speak up in meetings. You're always thinking about the bigger picture, or you're showing up just encouraging others to think bigger, or think with a vision in mind. And that may be something that people remember you as, like, oh wow, she may be ready for leadership because she's always thinking about the bigger picture. So, and that's different than someone who may be more of a quiet, confident person. I think
Yeah.
that's where I fell in when I was in corporate. I tend to, I don't talk all the time. Some people just talk, just talk. I'm not that type of person. And so, but I had that quiet confidence that really helped show that I was ready to lead, and I did get into
Yeah.
leadership. So it's one of those things. Like, I know you talk about like leadership style and how you
Yeah.
present yourself as a leader and what that style looks like. It's the same thing with executive presence, but it starts with who you are at your core. Let's remove the titles. Let's remove what company you work for. Let's remove everything. Who are you? What do you value for whatever reason? What do you value? And then how we
Yeah.
translate that to leadership behaviors.
That's good. That's good. That's good. So we talked about a couple of the strategies for like improving self trust and confidence and things of the sort. Are there other practical strategies you can recommend that help people start to improve their executive presence and how they're perceived by other people? Because a big part of this is I like to say, like, it's like when you're talking about personal brand, right? You don't have the final say. You can definitely do your work to guide the narrative, make sure what's inside coming out. But there is also how people perceive you. And are you aware of how people perceive you, right? Like, is there any mechanisms for feedback, these kind of things? So when you think about people being able to like improve their perception as a leader, what kind of strategies would you recommend for that?
Yeah, one of the things that I have my clients do, and they hate it, but I make them do it, is ask three-ish people that you
Okay.
work with, that are familiar with who you are, depending on the circumstances, maybe some personal as well, but definitely professional, and ask them a series of questions to help you gain an understanding of how they perceive you. And
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they're very shocked and very surprised about what people say. I'll say favorable or unfavorable, right? But understanding how people are perceiving you is key, because once you know that, then you're able to kind of fill in the gaps based on how you want to be perceived.
Yeah.
So if I know I want to be perceived as a confident leader, but I'm getting feedback from multiple people that, oh, she's quiet, she doesn't speak up, or oh, I feel like she holds back, you're like, whoa, what's that gap there? And once I have them do that and we sit down and look at those results, I'm like, okay, this is telling us a lot. Here are the strategic steps we're going to take to make sure that they do perceive you as a confident leader, to make sure that you're not holding back and shrinking and things like that. So
Yeah.
I love a good ask someone for feedback exercise. And not to say that other people's opinions matter, like, when it comes to you, but it does when it comes to how
Yeah.
you want to be perceived. So we have an idea of how we want to be perceived, but we have to find out what's the real thing so that it reduces the narratives that we're putting in our mind. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
another example too. I was speaking at a conference some time ago, and one of the ladies that was sitting in the conference, she looked very, I guess for a lack of a better word, she looked mean. She looked mean. I don't know if she had, RBF or whatever. But when I had the audience do this exercise, she was sitting beside a lady, and the lady said, "Oh, you just seem so confident. You just seem so sure of yourself. You just seem like you
Mhm.
are here. You take this as serious business for you." And she was like, "I don't feel like that at all." She was like, "I don't feel confident. I
Wow.
don't feel like I'm being taken seriously or that I'm serious." It's just, so one is, her body language is communicating something else, but two, it was an eye opener for her, like, oh wow, you just met me and you feel that from me. Now how can I bridge that gap based on how I really feel about myself? So
Yeah.
having that awareness of how others view you is important.
Very, very important. And I mean, I'm glad you said like it's not about
what everybody else thinks, but it's really important to know because a lot of people lack self-awareness. So
Yes.
it's a lot of us sometimes lack self-awareness. So it's important to know like how people are experiencing you. So you know if you need to pivot, or I also find that a lot of people with their strength areas or like their real kind of shining areas, because it's so second nature for them, they don't even recognize that as a strength. So they
Right.
don't have the language to really toot their own horn about it because it's like, it's just what I do. You need to know that's a strength so that you can amplify that as well. Yeah. Yeah, this
Exactly.
is good.
That's
This is good.
that's key when building your confidence, knowing that what's second nature to you. That's how honestly that's how I got into styling. It was
Yeah.
second nature for me, and people will always contact me and say, "Oh, I want you to do." That." I'm like, "Me, like girl, I'm just going shopping and getting dressed." Like,
They're
what?
like, girl, you help me.
Right. But you have to realize that you what may I always tell this, especially black women, what may seem mediocre or whatever is like second nature or you feel like is mediocre
Yes.
to someone else is the best thing they've ever experienced in life. So own it, operate in it,
Yes.
and be great with it.
Yes, yes, I love that. And getting that feedback, or like you're saying, look at the data. What are the common things that people continue to come to you for, or ask you, how did you do that? And you're like, I did this in 5 minutes, right? I
Exactly.
put this outfit together in 5 minutes, right? That's what Shaquanna was saying. They like, girl, but how? How? The
Right.
colors, the body
That's what I was
shapes,
like. All right,
how?
let me turn this into a business real quick.
Right, right, right. So I love that. Like it's looking for, we call it excavating your excellence, right? It's
Mhm.
not about finding something new. It's there, baby. It's just dig that thing up
Yeah.
and see if there's another way that you could package that. All right. So what about when you need to influence or have that executive presence, but you don't necessarily have authority? Is there anything else that we would do different, or is there any particular nuance? Like I think about a lot of our community are leaders, right? And so they may already have some positioning, but they just need to stand up in it. But I think about our early career folks, right, that we serve that are really just building the skills, building those leadership competencies. They have ideas. They want people to buy into their ideas. They want their managers to pick them for stuff, right? Is there any nuance that would be different if we're trying to demonstrate that presence, but we don't necessarily have authority? I know some things will be the same, but yeah,
Yeah,
any
yeah.
insights
There's
on that?
there's definitely a lot of things that are the same because leadership and having that presence is more about behavior, not necessarily the title. And I always tell our early career women that you're already leading in some way, somehow.
Yeah,
You're leading already. You just don't have that official title, or they don't look at you like that yet. And
yeah,
if you want to get to leadership, now is the time to still demonstrate those capabilities as far as leadership and executive presence because they're watching. They're watching from the moment you hit that
yeah,
door.
yeah,
They are watching.
yeah,
So, for those who may be early in their career or they're developing or building up their skills, still find ways to show that you are a leader, you're working towards a leader, or you are ready to lead, right? A lot of us don't realize that we actually are ready to lead. We're just not, demonstrating that so that others can see that as well. So, I always tell early career folks, don't be afraid to speak up in a meeting. I have a client who just started a new position in a new, brand new company, and she's kind of like, oh, I'm just going to be quiet. And I said, no, they hired you for a reason. Speak up in the meeting.
yes,
And there's ways you can do it without feeling like you're overstepping. Like, for instance, if you have an idea and someone else says something that may be similar, you can say, oh, I have some insight on that as well. We can do X, Y, and Z. Like, just adding to the conversation in a
yeah,
way
that's
that feels
good.
natural to you. That's how you show, like, hey, I may have just started this job. I may be only 1 year in the corporate game or whatever, in this industry, but I have a lot of knowledge and I have that presence where you can trust me to lead something. And the more that you
Yeah,
do that, then you'll get, your boss calling you up and be like, hey, Shaquanna, can you lead this special project real quick? And it's because they see that you're able to, do that and really
yeah,
succeed and excel at it. So it's finding those ways to show, hey, I may be early in this, but I'm confident in who I am. I'm owning that I'm smart. I'm owning my authority. you can trust me. You can trust me
Yeah.
to be promoted. You can trust me to lead. You can trust me to take over this high visible project, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But just still finding ways to do that is key. So it's similar, but I think I don't want to say the goal, but the intention is a little bit different. It's like, hey, I want to show I am capable. I may not be ready yet, but I am capable.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, I'm ready. I'm ready to go out for this promotion. Let me switch up my presence or work on my presence type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing that's too a really good thing for people who are in that early career that can support you in this presence, this executive presence piece, is also showing you're coachable.
Mm,
Because as you're new and you're learning, there's going to be some things that maybe you don't know, right? That doesn't mean that you don't have something to add, but your willingness to say, "Hey, I'd like to learn more about this," and to initiate that. Your willingness to take feedback when you did something and maybe it wasn't the right way because you never did it before, right? Really being open to receive that feedback and showing yourself open to trying it a different way or learning something new. That will also, speak volumes as well around your leadership potential and also your presence. I
yeah.
love it.
I would say be coachable and also don't be afraid to coach others, coach and mentor others. I
Yes.
feel like that's a way people see like, oh, okay, she's taking lead on, whatever this other person needs or whatever. So that's a good point. I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, and you know what? That coaching others is really good too, because we're seeing a lot of organizations doing more with the reverse mentoring programs
Mm-hmm.
because they realize that, especially in the age of AI and technology and things of the sort, that some of the early career professionals can teach some of them folks that's been around there a
Yes.
few things or two just because they're more savvy, they're more technically savvy, they're more they use these things in their everyday life too, not just at work. So their mastery over tools like AI and chat gpts and all these different type of things is just more advanced than people who may have other more technical skills in their field that is
Yeah.
more advanced than them. So
I
you
can.
got something to share too, boo. Okay. All
Right.
right. I love it. Shaquanna, I want to transition and ask you a few of our season themes questions. But before we make that transition, are there any final points or things that you would like to share just on this topic of defining your executive presence before we transition?
Yeah, I would just say as my final thing, and I think we've touched on it a little bit with the previous conversation, is just understanding that executive presence is not performance. It's not you trying to be someone else. It's not you trying to be someone that's different than who you naturally are. I just really am
Yeah.
passionate about women showing up in the way that they were created and who they really are authentically and excelling in that space. So I think that's just my main takeaway that I would
Yeah.
suggest for people to have. But yeah, I love any and everything confidence, showing up in your full power because as Black women, that's who we are. And I just want to help
Yeah.
us recondition our frame or our mindset and how we frame that. So we can go out here and get all the things that we deserve.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you use the language recondition because we're talking about this, you all, from the initiative and the due diligence that you take as a leader, right? As a Black woman. However, we also want to acknowledge that there are sometimes some systemic forces happening and you are doing everything you're supposed to do. You are being diligent. You are speaking up. You are bringing your voice to the table, guiding the narrative, and you're met with resistance or you're met with a lack of safety. You're met with toxicity. So I just want to call out, and I love the language you use, Shaquanna, around reconditioning, that some spaces don't deserve you. And so sometimes it's about you asking first, have I done my due diligence to share my ideas, put myself out there? But then sometimes the question is also validating that I have done my due diligence and this place is not safe for me, right? So we also want to affirm you there too. If you've assessed, you know what, I'm doing these things she's telling me to do, and this environment is one that I feel like is sucking the life out of me, then plan your course, right? Be wise, but you might need to get up out of there too. So I want to throw that out there too, because sometimes people are doing all the things and it's that space that don't deserve them. Okay,
Exactly.
so
Great
if
point.
you need
Great.
to go, boo,
Yeah.
if you need to go, we know it's precarious times right now with what's happening in the political economic landscape, all of that. I mean, plan your course, but also prioritize yourself as well.
Exactly. That's important.
Yep, yep, yep. Okay, so let's talk about this season 8 theme of leaning into joy. And I love it because a lot of what you're talking about is really, it's not performance, it's who you are, is your authenticity so you can bring your best contribution. Really aligns with our season's theme of leaning into joy. So we view, Shaquanna, all of our guests as possibility models for us, right? And so I love to ask you, what's your definition of joy? And has that definition of joy shifted over time?
Whew, joy is something I pray for every day. Oh,
Yes, yes, Lord,
no,
we need it.
yes. No, for me, it, as I reflect on this, joy to me is kind of like that combination of gratitude and peace. It's even
Ooh,
in the mess and chaos of life, because life gets messy, but
messy.
still finding, I ask God all the time, just give me a glimpse of joy. Finding that
Wow.
space where you're grateful for where you are. You find you have that gratitude, but you also have that peace that just comes into
Yeah.
your spirit, and you're just like, oh, I just feel so joyful. Like that's joy. That's joy to me, and that's more long lasting. Um,
Yeah.
and I think the second question you asked, like, what was the shift in joy?
Has your definition of joy shifted over time? Has it
Oh
always been that for you?
no, I used to think that joy for I used to equate joy with happiness, and which are
Okay.
different. I feel like happiness is something that you can create and it's temporary, whereas joy is something more spiritual for me, at least. And
Okay.
also,
Okay.
too, when I was younger, I used to equate joy with what I was accomplishing, joy with
Ah,
what job I had, joy with how much money I'm making, and that ain't it at all. That's not it
with
at all.
achievement, equating it to achievement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous spot to be in. Cause listen, as quick as you get it, as quick as it go away.
Whoop,
Um,
baby.
so
I mean, come on.
joy for me nowadays is family. I have a 2 year old. She just turned 2, so that is my
Oh,
joy right there. My husband, simplicity. I calm down my life a lot. Um,
yeah.
just to operate from a place of purpose and peace, and not pressure and not rushing, and oh, I gotta be busy, I gotta be
Urgency.
productive,
Yeah.
right? So when I have those moments where I'm not like that, I'm like, "Ooh, this is joyful." Like I'm grateful that I can do that, and I'm also grateful for this peace I'm feeling.
Oh, I love it. So there's this similar to what you were talking about with executive presence, this kind of internal
Yeah,
well first,
yeah.
right? That then bubbles out to the outside. Have you ever had to relearn joy after a difficult season? If so, what did that process look like for you?
Yeah, child. I go through the process all the time. No, because and it's hard, but those difficult seasons you gotta appreciate. I think for me now, I'm like, okay, I'm in a difficult season. What am I learning? What
Okay.
let me stop focusing on the challenges I'm facing, the problems, and focus on the purpose of this difficult
Yeah.
season.
That's
And
good.
that usually takes me to, okay, this is the joy that I'm getting out of it, or this is the piece that I'm getting out of it, or the lesson, of course, as well. So, when I'm navigating a difficult season, like I said earlier, I'm asking for a glimpse of joy from God, because, like, I need that. Am I on the right track? Like, are we good? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah. Give me a sign. Give me a sign, Lord.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. And it's in those moments that I realize it kind of grounds me, because I realize, you know what, Shaquana, it's okay. Everything is okay.
Yeah.
You are safe and everything is good. And that's when I usually have those moments of gratitude where I literally am like, I pay attention more. Like, I'll give you a
Yeah.
quick example. Yesterday, I was on a client consultation, and I went to the store, and both of those, well, okay, the client consultation, the woman, she complimented me on my skin. I don't get a lot of compliments on my skin, so I was like, okay, sis, thank you. And then when I went to the store, someone commented me on my hair, and I'm in my 1 year lock bursary, so it's
Yay.
still like I love it, but I'm like, it's still a little tiny bit new. But in that moment, and at the end of the day, I was like, thank you, God, for reminding me of my beauty. And I'm
Wow.
grateful for those reminders of my authentic beauty, because locks are authentic. I had a bare face that was authentically me, and he still reminded me that I'm beautiful. So I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but it's just an example of, no matter what season you're in, paying attention to those moments, those
Yeah.
that's the joy. And then that's how you can welcome in more joy into your life too.
I love it. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, this was so good talking to you. I love your kind of perspective and your insight on the amazing work that you're doing. Where can people connect with you outside of the podcast? And is there anything special you have going on these days that people should know about?
Yeah, so if you want to connect with me, definitely follow and connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I am the most. That's where I'm posting a lot of my great content, insights. Every now and then I throw in a quick life update. I throw up a picture of my daughter because I'm obsessed with her. So that's where I am, and that's where I engage. I love engaging with my audience there. So you will find me on LinkedIn. You can check out my website, shaquannachappelle.com. That's where you can learn about the different wardrobe styling that I do, and then also the executive presence coaching. And also, as far as like what I'm up to, I'm definitely still coaching, still styling clients, but also I'm a speaker and an author. So I know, Laura,
Okay.
you mentioned my book, Get Up and Get Dressed, and that is kind of like that level one. If you want to get started
Yeah.
with something, level one of how do I eliminate this self-doubt that's causing me to shrink and not allowing me to show up as my best self. So you can get a copy of Get Up and Get Dressed on my website as well, shaquannachappelle.com. And as far as speaking, I speak at various companies, conferences, organizations on the topic of executive presence, how to build a confident leader, personal image, personal style, and on all those topics that we talked about today. So that's what I have going on. I'm just this year just diving deeper into the executive presence piece, the speaking piece as well. So connect with me, contact me. I love to have a conversation.
Okay, I love it, y'all. Booker, Booker, Booker. I love it. I love it. If you've been listening and this has been helpful to you, you enjoyed this conversation, please share this episode with your friends, your family, your colleagues to help us amplify this work that we're doing. We are available on all major podcast platforms. You can also watch all of our episodes on the Black Woman Leading YouTube channel and listen from our website as well. Make sure you follow, subscribe, rate, all the things to help us continue amplifying this work that we're doing. If you would like to connect with us at Black Woman Leading on socials, we are at Black Woman Leading. Woman is singular. We are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And if you'd like to connect with me personally, I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram at Laura E. Knights. And finally, if you'd like to learn about our work that we do inside of organizations to help them create more effective leaders and high performing teams, you can visit our corporate site at knightsconsultinggroup.com. We would love to connect with you in any of these ways. And until next time, be well.